Welcome, everyone, back to the Podcast of Champions. I'm David Woods, Bruin Report Online, the UCLA site on the 24/7 Sports Network.
And I'm Ryan Abraham from USCFootball.com, the USC site on the 24/7 Sports Network. And together we make the Podcast of Champions, talking all things Pac-12 football with a little focus today.
Pac-12 football?
Formerly Pac-12 football. I forgot. I got to change the intro a little bit. We got one of our best friends out there, one of the best guys in the business. He just does a great job. Chris Karpman, SunDevilSource, covering all things Arizona State. Sun Devils joining us remotely, and thanks, Chris, for joining us. He was curious about how we were going to do this podcast going forward. We're still the former Podcast of Champions or Pac-12 schools for now. So at least for 2024, we're going to cover all those teams that we used to cover, or I guess we're still covering. But Chris, welcome in. How you doing, man?
Doing great. Glad to be with you guys. Very excited that you're going to continue to cover our schools. We need all the help that we could get.
Yeah, it's nonsensical. Ryan's got to work on his tense changes and what we cover, what we don't cover, what teams we're currently covering. We got to figure out how we're going to refer to everyone. Like, I like the Pac-12 diaspora, but it's a little highfalutin.
That's highfalutin.
Yeah, I don't know. We got to figure it out. Probably a new name of some sort, or at least a new tagline.
I mean, it's 4 different conferences now, and one of them is like a 2-team conference. I mean, I don't know. It's like what was formerly known like Prince, like he was formerly known as Prince, formerly known as the Pac-12, I guess.
So it should just be a symbol.
Just
like yeah. We'll figure it out.
Some kind of symbol or something.
But we're here to talk to Chris about the great Arizona State Sun Devils. I want to start with this. So this was Kenny Dillingham's first year. And obviously the record isn't, 3-9, whatever. But I know for me, there were a lot of signs of optimism, especially after the first 3 games, I want to say. What's the general feeling in Sun Devil Nation right now about Dillingham and his trajectory based on not just like the results of the season, but obviously what he's doing off the field and recruiting and all that?
People were excited that he was the coach, and they felt like they needed someone who understood inherently the organic challenges of ASU. And he went out and did a lot of fundraising. ASU was so far behind in NIL. It was just at the bottom of the major conferences. And things are a lot better now. They're not where they need to be, but I feel like ASU's transfer class this year was a lot better than what the program was able to accomplish in his first cycle when he inherited a roster that needed to be totally rebuilt, 50 plus new players. You're not going to be able to be that successful. And then they had the injuries. They were on their 4th quarterback by the 3rd game of the season. They had 7-8 linemen that were hurt last year. I'd never seen anything like it. So there's no way they were going to be able to compete especially with the looming understanding of not going to be able to play in the postseason due to the self-imposed bowl ban. They were never going to have a successful season. They were unlucky, I think, in some ways, turnover margin in particular, which is sort of random. But the recruiting has been pretty good, and they're headed in a much better direction. I think they're the addition of some of these guys that they've added, they're going to be better at almost all positions across the board this year.
Chris, the covering USC for as long as I have, I've had my fair share of chaos, to cover. There's just crazy, like what, like how, things that are like, that's an insane story and it didn't even make the top 5 for the year. I mean, a lot of stuff. I mean, the Hermit, like there was so much stuff going on at ASU, and you bring in this young guy like Kenny Dillingham, as David talked about. This seemed like it's like last year was just it was a kind of a whirlwind thing, and now things can kind of settle down and actually try to build a football program and get things kind of going. Does it feel like it's a little more settled than the sort of craziness that we saw, the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it, actually, especially with Ray Anderson's departure. Still need a new athletic director. That's probably going to take another couple months to get resolved. But whoever that person is, they'll have a very fresh perspective on ASU athletics, which really needed a comprehensive overhaul. So many problems, from just a mistaken hire in Herm Edwards to begin with, a lot of disconnection from the boosters. So Dillingham he's going to be here for the long haul. I really see no way in which he's not at ASU for at least the next several years. And even with the transfer portal era being what it is, we're still in a 4-year, 3-year sort of a thing to really rebuild a program. I mean, we saw that at Arizona, right? It took 3 years, and everything kind of went right for them this last year. And they got a phenomenal quarterback who's young and one of the best receivers in the conference, if not the country, in the year ahead. So that's great. But I think that when you start from where ASU was, it's going to be a 3 to 4 year makeover, even in the current everything happens fast sort of climate. And that's okay. That's just the reality of the situation.
We all know Ray Anderson's departure, which shockingly seemingly came at least partly on his own terms, was long overdue. And with that, I mean, the current situation where are they operating with an interim or just the absence of an athletic director?
Yeah, they have an interim, Jim Rund. He's a official with the university who's in the past serviced the same role. He's been around a long time. He understands the dynamics fairly well, has a good relationship with Dillingham and a lot of the other coaches. So things are going well in that regard. And I think that's the reason why, or one of the factors, that they're not that in a rush to replace Anderson. It kind of wasn't expected, actually, that Anderson was going to depart. Michael Crow, ASU's president, was very supportive of Anderson, and he's going to continue on as a law school professor and some of the courses that he already previously taught, which is also sort of bonkers. He's going to be the highest paid law school professor in the country. Maybe
does he have dirty pictures of Crow or something?
Look, people.
What is it with the university leadership in that state? What's the deal?
I wanted to think, because Michael Crow, it seems like he's good at leading the university, but really, really bad with the athletics side of things. And maybe with Arizona, it could be, I don't know, the opposite. What's
put them together? Their powers combined.
The conference realignment stuff was also just super messy, to the point where people on the border regions were in an argument with Michael Crow, in a meeting. He has so much power because the university under his leadership has gone from a $1 billion entity to a $7 or $8 billion entity. And so that the juice that he has, he was trying to just use all that. And everyone got to a point where they were like, man, this is even for you, we've reached a level that this is kind of ridiculous. And so things are a little bit different now from that dynamic, which I think is also better for ASU moving forward.
With Anderson, I guess and this is just maybe my last retrospective question. It's just it's seemingly that the Herm Edwards era did a significant amount of damage, obviously, and it's still reverberating through for Kenny Dillingham with this past season having the bowl ban. Anderson seemed, as you just said, had a lot of support from Crow, and obviously some of that can just be interpersonal or whatever. But what's your why? Why was Anderson allowed to operate in this way for so long and basically run it as an extension of his personal agency with Herm Edwards, for one thing?
People don't like to admit that they were wrong, David.
I cover UCLA. I don't know anything about that.
I mean, look, he hired him, and they were together on this, fait accompli thing about the Pac-12 and the TV rights stuff. And they were just so wrong about everything. It's very hard to just come out and be like, yeah, we were wrong. It's easier to say everybody else let us down by wanting to break up the conference and do all the things that they wanted to do. Oh, we were going to have it all sorted out with this Apple TV thing that was going to happen. It's easier, right? It's a better narrative when you can't accept that you're not the smartest person in the room. And so that's kind of what happened.
We got some, oh, sorry, good, wrong camera angle there. Some news kind of came out in the last week or so that we finally have the Big 12 conference schedule for 2024. So I want to kind of get your thoughts for Arizona State. You look at there's home games against Wyoming and Mississippi State, and then a interesting road trip to Texas State, and then the rest of the way it's all Big 12 games. What are your kind of thoughts on overall ASU's schedule for 2024?
It's weird. Like how does ASU go to play at Texas State and then at Texas Tech the next game?
That is so weird. Yeah.
When they scheduled the Texas State thing, Texas State was just becoming an FBS program. And it was like, oh, that's going to be a cakewalk. People can stay in Austin and drive down 45 minutes of the game and whatever. That's cool. But now they're actually like a good program. And why are you doing a home and home with an actually good program that you can lose to? Another sort of a mistake by the prior regime, really, when you look at it. But people are dismayed by the lack of the historical traditional stuff that we all like. As long as I've been alive, of course, it's been the same for us, and now it's totally different. And takes some getting used to. You're going to go see some new schools and some new experiences, which is kind of cool. But overall, I think it's just sort of a lukewarm sentiment that people have, and there's a lot of just frustration about how we got here.
So
it's really interesting.
Dave, I'll go over it real quick. At Texas State to start, home games against Kansas and Utah, familiar opponent. 2 road games, Cincinnati and Oklahoma State. Home against UCF, at least you don't have to travel all that way. Going at Kansas State, that's fun. BYU at home, and then going to Tucson to play Arizona. So,
yeah.
Small commentary there. 2 back-to-back roadies. Your new conference is not doing you any favors. Why am I getting happy birthday balloons?
Why are you getting balloons, David?
Why did that just happen?
That's awesome.
Did you do that, Ryan?
No, I didn't do it. I don't have that. I don't even have the capability to do that.
I didn't turn that on.
That's on your computer. Did people see
well,
it? Or if you're in the chat, did you see balloons?
Did you see the balloons?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah. Anyways, the balloons were not for ASU schedule. I saw one rating that had ASU as the toughest Big 12 schedule. They got 5 on the road, 4 at home. They miss a couple of the better teams from the conference this past year, but they also don't play a couple of the worst teams from the conference this past year. So that, I think, kind of evens out. But they're playing some teams that they've never played before and going to some places they've never played before. That's kind of cool. I don't think anybody expects ASU to compete for a Big 12 championship. So it's really not about that. It's just sort of you're immersing yourself into this new experience and you're trying to get better and maybe be a bowl eligible team if things go well.
So what's really interesting to me is talking to Jason and getting the vibes from Arizona fans. It's markedly different. I think the level of enthusiasm about the new change, and I'm much more aligned with ASU fans. I think this is ridiculous, everything that's happened. But why do you think there is such a big difference? Do you think it's the basketball focus for Arizona that has them more excited? What is it about the move that has ASU feeling more lukewarm?
Absolutely, it's basketball. ASU is going to get absolutely punished in the Big 12 in basketball. It's unless things dramatically change from a resource standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, leadership, whatever, there's just no way that ASU is going to be able to be competitive. You just look at it and there's probably 8 to 10 teams that are going to be better than ASU projecting into next year in the Big 12, unless there's a roster overhaul that stems from some windfall of cash in NIL that nobody expects or understands how it would happen. Just given the 9-year tenure of Bobby Hurley and what he's accomplished or not accomplished, really, to be more precise. That's the issue. And I also think that because ASU's been to the Rose Bowl in the past couple times, even though it's been forever, but there was an understanding that was possible in the Pac-12 in a way that for Arizona it never was possible, or perceived as possible. And you think when you fuse those two things together, there's an excitement about what could happen in the Big 12 that for Arizona fans it just does not exist for ASU fans.
All right. Last year, a lot of roster turnover. Kind of want to get an update on where the roster is now. I know the biggest news lately, Jalen Klemm, the offensive lineman from Washington, I believe started 7 games. Son of Adrian Klemm, who I think is still offensive line coach with the Pats. Maybe not. I don't know.
He had a health issue that he's like stepped away because of a health issue. And so now his status is sort of undetermined.
Okay. But Jalen Klemm, we got a picture of him here. But yeah, any kind of, what's the roster kind of turnover and updates been like?
They needed a lot of help. Offensive line added 4 Division I transfers, 2 starters. I think they'll probably go 9 or 10 deep there this year, which is a considerable improvement. And they added Sam Leavitt, Michigan State quarterback transfer. He'll compete with Jaden Rashada. So that should really boost their overall situation. They still have Trenton Bourguet back as a third option, which is a very good third option to have. A guy who started and played a lot and understands the scheme and everything. Probably going to be a coach. So they've had a bunch of players that they had to replace who were starters at other positions, especially on defense. They've done a very good job in the portal, linebacker in particular, safety. Those look really good. They've added San Diego State's team MVP, who's only a junior, who's a linebacker. They added New Mexico State star linebacker at over 110 tackles, I think, last year to lead the team, 10-win team, actually. They've added a bunch of size and will have more depth at the point of attack with their defensive line. Their safeties are really good. Xavier Alford, you guys know he couldn't play last year, but he's one of 3 or 4 safeties that are going to be really good. And then they of course, from Oregon, got one of the best young defensive backs there, who's originally from the Valley. So I think you put it all together, and the talent is definitely notching in the positive direction. The whole team is really, in my opinion, going to be predicated on are they able to get quality quarterback play, and are they able to protect their quarterback? If those two things are markedly improved, then because Brian Ward had really good game plans on defense, including against Washington, like maybe the best of any team, and those guys play really hard. So the reality is that even with a bunch of new players, if they have more depth, they won't wear down deep into the season. If they can get good quarterback play and offensive line to protect, then they'll definitely be a considerably better team.
Play 17-7 and almost killed Chip Kelly for it. They almost ended his tenure. Could have done it, maybe. I would have been I would have been an ASU fan for life.
The vibe in the press conference, the vibe in the press box that night, by the way, David, was there were some people that were a little bit excited about the prospects of that coaching change being precipitated from that. But you guys who wanted that didn't get your wishes.
No, very much not. So looking at so we did this with all of the publishers like 4 or 5 years ago, where we talked about like how the programs are situated, what expectations are, and all that kind of stuff. And I think the general consensus was ASU cycle up to a conference contender probably once every 4-ish years, and then in the meantime be a consistently good bowl program in the other years. And up until very recently, that's more or less always been true. ASU is always at least 7-5, and then in good years, much better. That was in the Pac-12. What is when you're doing a competitive prospectus about ASU's potential in the Big 12, do you see it as in the upper echelon of programs in the league? Do you see it as middle tier, kind of again, like where they were in the Pac-12, or where do you see them kind of fitting into the hierarchy?
Great question. I think that what we've seen from recruiting rankings and the transfer portal stuff there are indications that the conference is very gettable for ASU. Like they're in the top 4 or 5 in some of these categories in terms of how the classes are perceived, even when they're sort of at this nascent stage of developing their NIL and trying to catch up with other programs from a recruiting standpoint with 2024 kids still. 2023, 24, they're behind. 2025 is kind of when they're finally up to speed. So I feel like when you put those things together and you have staff continuity, they've re-signed the best recruiters to extensions, their coordinator to an extension. If they can iron out some of their biggest needs, which I talked about previously, they have as much, if not more, potential in a Big 12 that no longer includes Oklahoma and Texas. Like, why not? Oklahoma State is at or near the top of the food chain in a conference that they didn't even look that much more talented than ASU this past season in a lot of respects. Like, they had great coaching and they are able to, and they have a winning culture that's been established for a very long time. But I feel like once you establish culture, ASU shouldn't be able to struggle to have talent that's at or near the top of the Big 12. And so I don't think that there's not a lot of change into what aspirationally ASU should try to be or think of itself as going into this new conference in that respect.
Chris, you'd mentioned the quarterback situation, Bourguet still being there, but it seems like it's going to be a Jalen Rashada, Sam Leavitt sort of battle. Is that kind of what you're expecting to see this spring? What's that kind of shaping up to be like?
Yeah, very much so. Rashada, super talented, young, developing, big arm, beautiful deep ball. A lot of the finer details and points and understanding situations and making more precision passes that are short to intermediate are still not there. And his leadership and maturity probably still not there. But the talent is so great that it's intoxicating almost. It's hard to not want to have him be your quarterback, probably, if you're an ASU coach or your fans. And then I think of Leavitt as being somebody who is also talented, but more of an operator, so to speak, which I don't mean that in any sort of a bad way. Like, you could look at Bo Nix as like a great operator, like an incredible operator. In a way, because people don't see him necessarily as being a phenomenal NFL quarterback prospect or whatever. But so between the two of them, I think that there's a fair amount of differences, and stylistically and in terms of just kind of what they bring to the fold, but they're the same age. They're both quite young. Neither one of them is very experienced. And so it's going to be a challenge to see if they can be accelerated to the point that they're at least able to execute everything that you want to be able to do. Because remember, ASU has Elijah Badger coming back. He'll be one of the best wide receivers in the Big 12. And they have a complement of other receivers and skill players that should be pretty good and allow for this offense to be leaps and bounds better if the quarterback play is there. And we just don't know if that's going to happen yet or not.
In terms of Dillingham's vision for the program and how he wants it to function, once everything is kind of in full swing, once NIL is at the level that it's competitive with everyone that's at ASU's level. Obviously, nobody's competitive with Ohio State, but like at the respective competitive level, what is class composition? Is he going to want to attack the transfer portal aggressively, or is it mostly going to be built through high school? Does he see the footprint changing with the Big 12? Is the recruiting footprint going to change? Are they going to target Texas more and de-emphasize California? What is the plan for California now that there's not going to be regular conference games in California? Like that, just what's kind of the vision for his program going forward?
Yeah, this is really some of the most important stuff here. ASU is a very good destination for guys who are dropping down from the blue chip level. Clayton Smith, Prince Dorba, mentioned Cole Martin earlier coming in from Oregon. You got Jalen Klemm coming in. they're getting guys who maybe were the top backups at elite schools that saw that they were still going to be behind other players for another couple years, and they don't really want that. And I think that they're bringing a lot of guys home, guys who went to other schools thinking that they were going to enjoy playing at the highest level, and then maybe not being what they expected. And now they're returning to be at ASU from the Valley. So high school recruiting has always been a problem for the top recruits at ASU in just Arizona. And I think that they're getting some of those guys now, the Bram Waldens of the world, who were number one in their class coming out of Arizona, and they're now dropping down. But they also want a mix. So they don't want to be, they'd rather have as many or more high school recruits as transfers ultimately in the grand scheme of things, and be able to develop players and do a good job on the evaluation piece. And to that point, I think that they did that, especially with their Texas recruiting in their first cycle. Like they got CJ Fight, a D tackle, probably their best freshman, and he was a starter level player, even though he had just turned 18, and he was like a 3-star. And Montana Warren broke his collarbone, didn't play, but he looked like he was one of their best defensive players, also from Texas. So they've gone very aggressively into Texas. Of course, they have Brian Carrington and Rashad Samples. Those are their cornerbacks and wide receivers coach, top recruiters, Houston, Dallas. They're putting more effort and energy into Texas, and they have that ability to sell that because they're going to be playing a lot more games in and around the state moving forward. So that makes a lot of sense. They still have to cherry pick the West Coast. They got the top ranked recruit in Oregon. They got they got a couple players from Washington this year, including an All-American running back, Jason Brown, who's a 4-star type of a prospect. And then they've also gone into California in a targeted way. Like they got Butter Tollefson, who's a 2025 quarterback commit really early on from Southern California, that they're trying to use as an anchor to build around in that class. They have well-regarded offensive linemen already from California in 2025 as well. So I think we're going to see a little bit more of it's not going to be as concentrated in California as like what Antonio Pierce and Herm Edwards earlier on were trying to do. But I think for where they're at now and where they're going, it makes sense to be more in Texas without losing focus on Arizona or California or the West Coast. And also, you don't need 20-something kids from high school anymore. Like it should be probably around 15-ish kids from high school in a recruiting class. And that is very, like you can probably get at ASU 8, 9, 10 kids that are in the top 600 or 700 of a recruiting class. And then do a good job on the evaluation piece with 3-star guys that maybe were not as appreciated. And I also think that when other schools have the ability to get so many transfers that are at the very top end, that maybe unlocks some of these high school recruits that ordinarily would be going to better schools in ASU that you can actually maybe get now if things are going well for you.
It's funny you mentioned Antonio Pierce. How crazy is it? He's the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders now.
The guy is a phenomenal coach, and he is extremely dynamic personality. Like people are transfixed by him. And that's actually partly what led to a lot of the problems at ASU, is that everybody kind of got on board to his way of magical thinking about we can do all these things and it's going to be fine. When the reality is everybody loses their job and a bomb detonates and there's still smoke, wafting around. But I don't think anybody cares about that at the NFL level. I think people at the NFL, they see college football as totally broken, recruiting rules and all these things are a joke. Somebody who's just trying to get things done aggressively, that's actually maybe not a bad idea for Raider hierarchy, right? And so it's just a totally different thing. It's funny and it's interesting, but college football and the NFL football, they're just totally different worlds. But we always knew that he was a really great coach and a really dynamic personality who had a lot of upside, and really he should have been ASU's coach, not Herm Edwards. But he should have been ASU's coach with a better leadership structure in place above him at an administrative and compliance level to prevent the things that happened at ASU. And that's what's so sad about this, is that the opportunity was really there to flourish. They had 8 or 9 top 100 kids in California in the 2019 class. They were killing USC and UCLA in recruiting, actually, for how bad things were in a period of time there. And there was an opportunity, and they just kicked it away with their own, stupidity and arrogance.
Ray Anderson, baby. I got to get to the bottom of this, and you're the man who will provide the straight scoop. What is the backstory of Kenny Dillingham's answer when asked what his favorite band is? And he said Train. I want a full minute-by-minute breakdown of what went on here. Was that a joke answer? Was that a serious answer? If it was a serious answer, I want all the details, all of them.
It was a serious answer.
Oh my God.
How
old is he? He's 33 or something.
Yes, he's an old soul, apparently. I don't know. But apparently, so they played Train the next day to start practice after this. And I showed up and I was like, wait a second, this is Train? It was like blaring from the parking lot.
Meet Virginia.
Yeah. And I'm just like, so I asked him that. I'm like, were you serious? Like, do you need some help, like connecting to classic rock or even like some better 80s stuff? Like what is your problem, dude? And the guy is so enveloped in football that he's not exploring Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's not listening to Pink Floyd or Zeppelin. Like he doesn't know. I mean, probably can't even name 3 or 4 Def Leppard songs. I don't know.
Drops to Jupiter, baby. Hell yeah.
I love that you tried to get to the bottom of that too, because David, that's one of those things David just
I need to
let
know.
Go.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna have to go to Big 12 Media Day, and I'm gonna have to really press him on it.
He's a little bit quirky, almost kind of like nerdy in a way, but it's sort of like an endearing, natural quality that he has. And the Train's not terrible. I don't know if you guys disagree. I'm not saying Train's good, but Train's not terrible. It's not like, he didn't say, I don't know. He didn't say
Hanson or something.
Yeah, no. So it's basically the thing I said about Train when he said it was, that is nobody's favorite band. That's got to be no. There's no way, because it's like, okay, if I hear Drops of Jupiter, it's like, okay, it's a nice little ditty or whatever. But it's not like, oh, I love that band, I want to listen to their whole discography.
I agree. It's not somebody who's a music connoisseur.
No,
that's all you could say.
That was amazing.
There. We had a question from Amy in the chat. If you guys, we're gonna let Chris go here in a minute, but if you do have other Pac-12 or former Pac-12 questions, you can put them in the chat. If you're watching live, we appreciate that on our YouTube channel, and we'll try to get to them. But she wants to know, does ASU have deep pockets for NIL?
Maybe deep pockets and skinny jeans. No. ASU had nothing. ASU was well behind Arizona, to put it in perspective, like a year ago. And Dillingham had there was a booster event for ASU's the largest NIL collective that supports ASU, Sun Angel Collective, pardon me. Dillingham gave a 20-minute speech to them in the beginning of December, and it yielded over $1 million from a dozen people. Wow. And they've now put together at least a few million toward their NIL operation. But you guys know that's still not above what you need to be to get into.
I cover UCLA. I don't know anything about NIL.
Well, that's true, David. But I did a lot of reporting, and basically you kind of need around $5 million on an annual spend in football. And that doesn't even get you a great quarterback. That's just everywhere else without really having a great quarterback. So they're not into the top 25, top 30 realm, but they're at least not embarrassed now. They're in the Big 12. they're at least like decently competitive with a lot of the teams. And look, they're still at an early stage. Like there's a lot more education that's happening. The strength is really in the numbers of how many ASU graduates that there are, and trying to tap into the small donations that are recurring thing. And there's a lot of strategies that they have that are in the works to try to develop that out more.
Brian had a question in the chat too. Is ASU going to get hit with sanctions for the crap Herm and company did during COVID?
Well, Brian, you may have missed it, but ASU self-imposed a postseason ban last year. They've also had for 2 years now, guys, other self-imposed penalties that a lot of people don't know about. They're Herm Edwards and Antonio Pierce, even before they were no longer at ASU, they were not able to go on the road recruiting. There were a lot of restrictions, for official visit reduction number. This coaching staff didn't go on the road recruiting 1 week in January when everybody else is out on the road. And there's probably going to be scholarship reduction. There's already been a couple scholarship reduction, and there's additional sort of punishments. But we're getting to the very end of this process, the bifurcated process, basically almost like a plea agreement with the committee that's involved. You propose, hey, here are the punishments that we would like to take to resolve this matter. And then the committee goes, that's probably not enough. We're going to need a little bit more blood from you. And then they come back and they offer a little bit more blood. And then they go, we're getting close. Just maybe a little bit more. And then you offer a little more blood and they go, okay, let's get the lawyers involved and let's codify this thing. That's kind of where we're at right now.
Got it.
You need to get the governor and the state attorney general involved, like Tennessee, stuff.
Yes.
Good going. Chris, you going to be out there in Vegas for the final Pac-12 basketball tournament?
Yes, I am going to be there.
Nice.
I wouldn't miss it. Yeah.
Can't miss Bobby Hurley. You never know what's going to happen.
That's true. I wasn't going to go. USC's like in last place, I think, so I wasn't even going to go, but now I'm going. But I got to go on Wednesday because they stink, so I have to go the early game. So,
Ryan, it's Vegas, man. It is. You can do.
Oh, I have to spend another day in Vegas. Oh.
The world is your oyster in Vegas, man.
David guilted me into. Well, Chris, we really appreciate you coming on, especially last minute. We didn't, yeah. But I'm going to actually be out your neck of the woods, Super Bowl weekend. So my buddy lives in Scottsdale. We're going to do a little golf, watch some Super Bowl. You going to be around? Or we get a beer or something?
I'm ready. Phoenix Open. I'm going to go. I haven't decided what day. I'm just kind of last minute, but I'll probably end up there.
Oh, nice. I think we're going Friday. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Dave, it's a big party, big golf tournament party. I went a few years back. Yeah. It's like the biggest sporting event in the country. Like I think it.
Yeah, my brother went to it one time.
It draws more than the Kentucky Derby even. I think like a
true story, guys. Tiger Woods hit the hole-in-one that's sort of very famous now at the Phoenix Open. Whatever it was, 1998 or 6 or something, whatever. I was actually greenside when that happened, and that was before. That was way before they turned it into the party where there's 50,000 people on a hole. They had like 16th. Yeah, they had I think 10% of the grandstands that they have now. But yeah, that was like my seminal moment at the Phoenix Open. And I've, since then I've probably been, 8 to 10 more times, but it is a phenomenal party and I encourage everybody to check it out.
Yeah. So looking forward to doing that. But Chris, thanks so much for, coming on. We'll let you go and we're going to we'll take a break, everybody, and we'll come back and Dave and I will try to answer some of your questions and wrap this one up. But Chris Karpman, make sure you follow him over at SunDevilSource. Check him out. Thanks a lot, Chris.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Chris.
See you guys.
Bye.
All right. We'll be back in a minute, everybody. All right.
Where'd
it's just two of us.
It's us.
I like that transition.
Just you
Wasn't
and
that smooth?
Me. That was so great. You showed the same picture of Kenny Dillingham, I think, between 4 and 10 times.
Well, I have 4 pictures of him. It's like there's not.
Where's your creative energy?
That's a lot of creative. To have 4 pictures of this 33-year-old coach, that's a lot.
You should have had a picture of the lead singer of Train ready to go at one point. You should have known. You should have anticipated my line of questioning.
Yeah, I should have.
We're just not simpatico. It's because we're not in the same same room.
Yeah, I don't know why. What's going on here? Just too much rain out there. You can't drive over to the studio.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still got a lingering thing. So actually, I'm being courteous to you.
Okay.
Because I don't want to get you sick before your. I mean, is this is a big moment? Is this your first vacation of the calendar year, or is this number 2? Where are we on the vacation scale?
Oh, well, I was in Hawaii, but that was for work.
Oh yeah, certainly for work, entirely for work. This one won't be.
This one is just for fun. There's a little golf and check
okay.
Out yeah.
So are we calling this vacation number 1?
There'll be one. I actually have 2 Catalina trips coming up. So, but that's like one day, one night thing. So, it's like fishing. Not as like vacation. You're like camping and stuff. You know?
And then it'll be Vegas several times in March.
I'm going. That's the problem. Is I go the first weekend of March Madness. So I wasn't going to go to the Pac-12 tournament, but now I'm going to the Pac-12 tournament at least for a couple of days.
Because I'm going.
That's why I'm going, because you were going and you kind of guilted me into going.
I wouldn't say I guilted you into it. The funny thing is, I guilted you into going, but you have to turn it into a work trip. So you're going to go out actually earlier than I am. So you're going to be there Wednesday, and I won't be there till Thursday.
I looked at the standings, and I'm like, oh, USC's in last. Okay, so they're definitely playing on Wednesday.
And this is just me vibing, because there is a very good chance UCLA still ends up on Wednesday. But I think they're going to be top 4 at the end of the day.
Okay. Oh, yeah, because they're not right now, right?
No, they're in a 4-way tie for 4th.
Oh, okay.
But they're playing much better.
We had a question. It was for Chris, but we already let Chris go. But it was in the chat. Longhorn for life. He wanted Chris to clarify more on what Herm did to this outsider. Pac-12 people keep making him the scum of the earth, but I don't know what he did in detail. Signed, Ryan and Dave's favorite UT fan.
So 2 things. 1, mediocre coach. Who probably squandered a lot of talent, and as Chris said, many good assistant coaches. And the sum was not equal to the what's the phrase I'm looking for? Not equal to the whatever the parts.
Some of its parts, yeah.
You know what I'm saying.
The whole is not equal to the sum of its parts.
You know what I'm saying. Right there. Yeah, there you go. The whole was not equal to the sum of its parts. Damn, look at you. Look at you with the words. Don't say I'm the words guy. You're the words guy. So there was that. And then the sanctions stuff, basically they hosted visits during COVID when nobody should have been on campus. And that's really the long and the short of it. There were some other violations, some other stuff that went on, but I think that was the big one that was a huge no-no. And so you won't hear Chris say it's unfair because like that they're getting sanctioned for it, because it was just an obvious no-no. And some schools were doing like somewhat like sort of similar things, but ASU was very, very out there about it.
They were kind of over the top with it.
Over the top. And
it was one of those ones where like that's a thing where it pissed off other coaches where like, hey, we're not hosting any recruits, and they were like blatantly like flying guys in. There was, meeting with them in big groups. Like it was just kind of a little bit over the top with some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Alex wants to know, can we fill a POC craps table?
Oh, please. Let's do it.
That would be a lot of fun. Unfortunately, let's do like downtown where it's a little cheaper. Cause like,
yeah, we played a lot of $15 craps, Ryan and I, when we were last there, and that was unpleasant. We also played some $25 craps, which was even more unpleasant. Yeah. And not unpleasant because we lost, unpleasant because it feels bad in your stomach.
It's just so much, like, at least for our budgets, like it's
so
much.
Well, you put like 3 come bets out there, and suddenly you've got like $150 out there very quickly, and it's like, no, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I want to do it. I want to. All right, we got to get to some questions. Are there any? Let's see.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. We've got Kellen. You ready?
Yeah.
Big 10 versus Big 12 versus ACC. Hi, 1, Dave, and 2, Ryan. Not that I'm ranking or anything. The U of A players showed me that socialism is the best route, so here we are. Anyways, which conference provides the easiest path to make the 12-team CFP next year? All right, that's first question. What do we think?
So,
the ACC? The ACC still has Florida State. I think it's probably the Big 12.
Well, so there's better teams in the Big 10. The Pac-2 is not going to be one of those easier paths, but I would say you could be in the top 3 in the Big Ten and make it, where you might have to win the Big 12 to make it. So what do you feel like? Like, is it easier to say Oregon?
How about this? Let me help you with this, because this is a really, really easy question to answer, in my view. Does Arizona, if they were transported to the Big Ten, have an easier chance of finishing in the top 3 of the Big Ten or winning the Big 12?
No, I think they have an easier time winning the Big 12.
Correct. So the answer is
the Big 12.
There you go.
Real quick, Colt says Ellis Island crap stables. I do like Ellis Island.
Anywhere we go downtown, we can get between $5 and $10. So the only problem that Ryan and I will have is if our teams keep annoyingly winning, because then we can't really embrace the level of joie de vivre that you need. By that I mean we can't get super drunk playing craps, because that's the only way to truly loosen your inhibitions enough to really make that cheddar.
And it usually happens late. Like we would be at the arena until like 11 p.m. And then it's like, then you start gambling.
Yeah, so it depends on also the POC listener base's willingness to stay up late. And honestly, it depends on my ability to stay up late. I am an old person. Ryan's a younger person than I am. His age does not indicate it, but he is a younger person. He texted me the other night at like 8:30. I saw it in the morning because I was asleep. I am an old man. The gray hair does not lie. The gray beard, it doesn't.
Nice.
I am an old person. All right.
He also said there was some second part of it.
Yeah, there's a second part. It's Disney princess season. If you have time, assign Disney villains to the former Pac-12 team's coaches. List of villains. This is hard.
This is hard. Who, like Captain Hook? Who would Captain Hook be?
Captain Hook.
I mean, it would have to have been Mike Leach back in the day.
Clearly, kind of a flamboyant figure. Wears a lot of pantaloons. Has a big hat. Pretty out there. Has a vendetta against a young boy. I'm trying to think. Does that apply to anybody?
I don't know. This is really tough. I think there's like.
Yeah, this is hard. I got to give more thought to this one.
We need some suggestions from the audience for villains.
Yeah.
But he gives a list of the villains, like the Evil Queen from Snow White, Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland, Maleficent.
Yeah, it's tough. Villains are harder because they don't have positive attributes. So it's the problem is you have to think of everyone's negative attributes, and so many of the coaches in the Pac-12 are just boring dudes who just are boring, and like that's their main attribute is that they're boring. You can always apply something positively to these guys, like, oh yeah, whatever. Wants to say shut up in a castle. That's Kyle Whittingham or whatever. So anyway, we'll I'll think on it, Kellen. Okay. I'll think on it for you.
We got Thomas wrote in flattery.
Flattery
will get you nowhere. Hey guys, I was originally going to write in last week to express my deep gratitude to Shane for awarding me 8th place on the top 10 list, but didn't finish it in time. Luckily, that gave Bree a chance to steal the show and make a cameo appearance over voicemail. As for Shane's effusive praise, all I can say is that flattery will get you nowhere. Comparing me to perhaps the greatest writer in the English language as an insult is one thing, but for him to then reveal that an email I wrote, checks notes, almost 4 years ago is still living rent-free in the heads of the podcast Intelligentsia. Now that Intelligentsia. What the hell is that? Okay. Now that is a true badge of honor. Nevertheless,
the Intelligentsia are the elite, the people who like set the culture, who talk like our Intelligentsia are like people who like read and like care about the New York Times.
Yeah. So horrible people, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You also, when you are confronted with a word you have not seen before, Ryan, you have the same habit as my youngest daughter, which is, I'm just going to say some things. I'm not even going to look at these letters. Fuck them. Fuck the letters.
Yeah, just like,
phonics is bullshit. Phonics is bullshit. I'm not going to follow any of those rules. We are just going to guess. And I appreciate that about both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially staring at the screen. It's the letters are smaller now. My eyes aren't as good. It's like I need to make them bigger.
Your actual age old. I am spiritually old.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so nevertheless, I'm trying to be more succinct these days. So here's a question for Dave, and if so inclined, Ryan, to ponder. In the alternate universe where Chip Kelly was fired last November, what you're getting Dave excited here. What do you think would have been? Who do you think would have been hired to replace him? And if Chip Kelly quits in the next few months to wait tables at IHOP just outside Iowa City, who would realistically would be an option to become the Bruins' next head coach? I ask because we did not know 2 months ago that even if UCLA had replaced Chip with Jonathan Smith, Kalen DeBoer, or Jed Fish previously, Martin Jarman would still need to find someone else now. Keep sampling those cheeses, Thomas B.
Okay, hang on, Thomas. If UCLA had hired Jonathan Smith or Jed Fish 2 months ago, like right after the season, they would be the coach going into this year. Like, earmuffs Washington. No one's going to Washington to take half the to get half the TV money that they would get at UCLA. It's right now. Is it a better job? Sure, but like Jed Fish wanted to be at UCLA. Jonathan Smith was like doing back channel stuff to try to get to UCLA, and they just passed on doing anything because the administration at UCLA is a nerd. The only one of those guys who would have immediately bounced is Kalen DeBoer because he'd be going to Alabama. So just that first. Second, at this point, who UCLA should hire is almost literally, I won't say exactly literally, but almost literally anyone with a pulse. Right now, Chip Kelly, for all intents and purposes, as the UCLA coach, does not have one. Recruiting is dead, absolutely deceased. I've been joking about it for many years that UCLA's recruiting is very bad. It's now the actualization of all of those jokes. They are currently 58th in the 2024 class. You know, the one that's going to be signed tomorrow, like the final high school recruits coming together. And then there's going to be one more transfer portal window coming out of spring, which is mostly going to be guys who got beat out in the spring at their current spots. And that's it. And they are 58th. That is the worst recruiting class in UCLA history. You could hire anyone, and it would breathe more life into this program. You could rehire Carl Durrell. You could rehire Rick Neuheisel, and it would reinvigorate things
now
to some
you're
extent.
Talking.
Because things are dead. They are deceased. The head coach of the program just spent the better part of a month trying to get any job, any other job he could find. He tried to talk to Iowa about their OC job. He talked to NFL teams about their OC jobs. There was a report that he may have even looked into the Boston College head coaching job. He is trying to leave, and he can't. He can't. And UCLA won't fire him. It is the worst situation I can remember for UCLA football ever. The program is so in such dire straits right now. Any change would be beneficial. Anything.
So
does that answer your question?
Is it good that the UCLA is going to the Big Ten now, like where they take football more seriously and stuff?
I don't even know how to answer that. So, because the thing is, and this is what I said from the beginning with UCLA's move to the Big Ten, unless this is a signal that they're getting serious, it's a bad decision. And every single signal, every single explicit thing that UCLA has done since then has signaled the exact opposite, that they are getting less serious, that they are trying to be more like an Ivy League school. And it is absolutely stunning the level of disregard they have for their own fan base. It is, I've used the word embarrassing a lot, but it's honestly, and like, I don't mean to talk about sports as if they're that important. They're not. But there's a lot of people who invest a lot of time and energy into caring about this stuff. And I've made this point before. It's disrespectful to those people to not invest at least an ounce of energy in faking like you're serious. They're not even faking it anymore. They're pretending, like they're not even pretending that what we've seen for the last 20 years, that they're serious. Like, oh gosh, I guess we got to fire this guy now because everyone's done with him. So they're non-viable anymore. We're going to fire him. They're not even doing that anymore. They've shown, the mask is off at this point. And I think it's disrespectful to the fan base. I think it's shameful behavior at a certain level where it's just, you're hired to do a job, you're paid very well for it. And one of the base functions of that job is to carefully curate your major athletic programs and to make sure that there's a level of excitement in your fan base. So, and just from like a dollars and cents perspective, so people keep donating, people keep buying tickets, people keep buying merchandise, all that kind of crap. And that's not being done. That's not being executed. And so there's like due diligence that's not being done. There's just like basic, like just maintenance of the program that's not being done. And it's just an absence of leadership and vision at all levels. It is, again, the most stunning mismanagement of an athletic program I can remember, and absolutely the worst position the UCLA program's been in forever.
It's more of a basketball school anyway, right? I mean, it's just like not.
I can't because I'm sitting here and you're sitting there. But if I was sitting there, I would be threatening certain things right now that we all know what those things are.
West Texas Mike, I know. Why does Chip want to coach but not at UCLA? Like he's looking for a coaching job.
You know what other job he'd get paid millions of dollars to do? None. But frankly, I don't know that there's any proof, any evidence at this point that anyone would pay him more than, $1 million to do anything right now, because he tried to get a job and couldn't. He tried to get an offensive coordinator job and couldn't.
There was really
that's not a great sign.
Like even at Iowa, like looking to go there.
So I don't know. So that's the one where he talked to Kirk Ferentz. I've heard that enough from enough people that it's, yeah. Okay. But I don't know how serious that one was. That might have been like we're gonna bandy about some ideas, but I don't know how serious that got. But the NFL stuff was all very serious.
Yeah,
he was trying really hard.
It's funny. I think Chip Kelly would score too many points for what Iowa would want for an offensive coordinator. Like, you're one of those guys that scores points. We're not looking for that.
Brian says, nice. Dave comparing Ryan to a 6-year-old when I said that you had the same phonics habits as my youngest daughter. That is really unfair to Ryan. I'm comparing him to a 7.5-year-old.
There you go. See?
We're deep into second grade now.
Much more mature.
Yeah. So, no. Put some respect on Ryan's name.
Thank you.
Yeah.
7.5. I could take that. Okay. That's all I got. Do you got anything else?
Do we have any more questions? Is that it?
So. I think that's it.
Wow. Okay.
West Texas Mike did give us some suggestions for people to talk to, but we looks like we're going to talk to Steve Bartle next week about the Utes.
These two Utes.
He's actually coming to Southern California with his family for.
Are we going to bring him in?
But he's leaving Saturday, so I don't think we're going to be able to. They're going to like Disneyland and stuff. So
nice.
Yeah, have a good time with that. But we'll talk some Utah football. So if you have any questions ahead of time, since we'll give you a little heads up, we'll schedule him to come on. You can email us, pac12podcast@gmail.com. And look at David. He's looking good. It looked like something was breaking in your brain. It's like someone stuck like a needle somewhere, and it was just like, that's exactly like moving around, like making your face do different things.
Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, let's see. Oh, Brian has a question we could throw up there. Let me see. Your face is going. I've often heard you refer. So this is for you, Dave. You refer to Jim Mora had it going at UCLA until he, quote, lost his mind. I know he had marital issues, but can you expound on this a bit more as to what you're referring to?
The marital issues is a bit of a false canard. He had a lot of issues. He was very high and low. How about that?
Okay.
Is that a nice way of saying it? I really like Jim. He could be a really, really good guy, really energetic, really fun, and then he could be a real dick and a real asshole, and it kind of flipped on a dime a lot.
Interesting.
And he also had marital issues at the end of his tenure, but things were going wrong in the program the 2013-2014 offseason, heading into that 2014 season.
Was it his daughter, I think, was at USC, and then like a picture of her like in USC clothes got out or something, and it was just like, well, who cares? Like, she's in college. Like, I don't know. Like, people were making a big deal about that or something. Did I remember?
Yeah,
that right?
I mean, there was a big deal about his. There was a lot. A lot went on. He was so at a lot of institutions, the coaches' kids get into school at the school that they are the coach at. That's not the way it worked at UCLA, and there were some hard feelings about that at different points. And so he sent some of his kids to, I think one or two of them went to USC, and some saw it as a FU to UCLA at the time. But I don't know. It's proximity, and it's it's the next best school option that's local. Like I don't know. I mean, it's just, I always thought that stuff always rubbed me wrong. And so, but like, what is, I don't know, like making kids public figures and like analyzing what they're wearing and doing is stupid.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to wrap things up here. Another fun episode of the podcast of Champions. Thanks to Chris Karpman, who did let me get his little great job out there talking ASU football.
Arizona State Sun Devils.
Oh, yeah.
Really good stuff. It wasn't as you forget that they are having an athletic director search over there. Wasn't quite as exciting as what Arizona has going on. There's a lot more turmoil and stuff. ASU had a lot more turmoil last couple years, and seems like things are settling down a little bit. So we'll see what they're able to kind of build on that. What Kenny Dillingham could do. Oh, we forgot to talk. Marcus Arroyo, they hired him too.
Yeah, I forgot to get into all of the Kenny Dillingham continuing to hire offensive coordinators stupidly.
Yeah, that was stupidly, because Beau Baldwin is out. I totally wrote that down. My apologies. I didn't ask Chris about that, but he was hired in December, I believe, and I don't think he worked last year. He was the UNLV head coach prior to that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But will Kenny still be calling the plays? We'll have to get Chris to update.
Probably not for 3 games that they lose, and then suddenly he's going to realize that that's what he was hired to do again.
Yeah. My apologies for not asking about that one. So, but anyway, good stuff from Chris. Always fun. Looking forward to talk about the Utes next week when I get back, and hope everyone has a fun Super Bowl weekend. David, have a great time. And
I will.
Yeah. Good time for David Woods. I am Ryan Abraham. Hope you guys enjoyed our little show, and we will talk to you next time.
Goodbye.